Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where overcoming adversity is like wrestling an octopus, unexpected, slippery, and oddly satisfying when you finally get a grip. Well, I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Did you know that 90% of successful leaders attribute their success to resilience? So, how do they bounce back from setbacks, disappointments, and crushing defeats? Well, here's what I learned from talking with 183 business leaders about their journeys. Today, we'll explore how exceptional leaders get knocked down and get back up, and why this skill is crucial in our crazy world of entrepreneurship. Yeah, I say it all the time. No journey is all up and to the right, no matter what you read in TechCrunch. Sometimes it does look like it on a chart, but charts lie, or at least they don't tell the whole story. Maybe it's data in the charts, but we're talking about the human story for sure. It's never always up and to the right. Leaders today face a myriad of challenges, from failures and criticism to unexpected changes. Things change, regulatory changes, algorithm changes, all sorts of things. And these setbacks can be really, really crushing and often test the limits of our resolve. Whether it's a project that didn't go as planned, harsh feedback from stakeholders, whether board members, clients, and I've been ripped up by both of them, or sudden market shifts, things that we didn't have any control over. But these challenges can hinder progress and dampen morale. But do they have to? The ability to navigate these turbulent waters and emerge stronger is what sets extraordinary leaders apart from the rest. But how exactly do they freaking do it? And I do want to move beyond things like be resilient. That's true enough, but let's discuss 3 non-obvious strategies and mindsets that extraordinary leaders use to overcome challenges. The first one is to practice reflective leadership. And the first time I heard that, I was like, do what? Well, that's a new one. What does that mean? Tell me more. Reflective leaders regularly take time to analyze their experiences and decisions. A lot of them keep journals to document what went well, what didn't, and why. And that practice helps them gain insights from both successes and failures. Fosters continuous improvement and deeper self-awareness. By understanding their own thought processes and reactions, they can develop more effective strategies for the future. Another great thing about journals is you go back and you look and you not only see the downside, but you see, hey, I've been here before and I survived. The other thing is you really see your victories, you see the successes. It's really easy to forget about those. And my favorite is you see things that you used to do that were successful that work so well, you stop doing them. Anybody ever felt that? I have. The second one is to cultivate emotional intelligence. And we've talked about this a couple of times here recently on the show. But leaders with high emotional intelligence are adept at managing their own emotions and also understanding the emotions of others. So it's not, when things don't go well, it doesn't just affect you, but it can affect the team. And having that understanding is a real skill. But that skill allows them to navigate interpersonal dynamics a lot more effectively, build stronger relationships, and create a positive work environment. Emotional intelligence involves active listening, empathy, and the ability to stay calm under pressure, all sorts of pressure. And all of those are crucial for handling setbacks gracefully. And number 3 is to leverage diverse perspectives. Extraordinary leaders seek out and embrace diverse perspectives. They actively solicit feedback and ideas from team members with different backgrounds, different experience, different industries, different viewpoints. This diversity of thought helps them see challenges from multiple angles and develop innovative solutions. And sometimes that is from your team internally, sometimes it's completely outside. But by fostering an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued, leaders can tap into a wealth of knowledge that creates and drives resilience and adaptability. And in summary, the key to extraordinary leadership is absolute steadfast commitment to the vision and adaptability and flexibility in how you get to that goal. Yeah, two things that when I first really started wrestling with this, it seemed like they were completely at odds. Super, super rigid and unbending on one side, flexible like Gumby on the other. Committed to the vision and your why. That doesn't change. And it's something you've got to absolutely believe in your core in order to bounce back and to get up after being knocked down over and over and over again. And then at the same time, flexible on the approach, flexible on how we get there. And I think all of those fit really nicely in practicing reflective leadership, cultivating emotional intelligence, and leveraging those diverse perspectives, being open to that. Those are essential for navigating the complexities of leadership and achieving long term success. So, how have you done in your leadership journey? Any of these resonate with you? Our founder on Tuesday was Sean Malone, founder of FlowChat. He's an 8-time founder, amazingly successful, and gave us the straight scoop on founder life, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the really awesome. And Sean is such a great dude also. Such a good episode. So much good stuff there. And our expert guest last week was Sylvia LaFair, author and leadership development expert. We talked about how the behavior patterns we learned in our original organization, the family, show up in our present organization at work. I mean, it's like mind blown. And then, of course, what do we do to change those patterns that no longer help us succeed? If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and give it a listen. Such good stuff. My guest today is Richard Harris, a go-to-market strategy and sales expert with over 20 years of experience across roles from SDR to VP of sales. He has coached top companies like Zoom, Salesforce, Human Interest, and Gainsight on how to ask the right questions at the right time. He is the co-founder of Surf and Sales and host of the Surf and Sales podcast. Welcome someone dedicated to helping sales rep and founders excel and grow revenue, Richard Harris. Hey, Richard, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
So good to be here. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm excited about our conversation today. And you have your own podcast, Surf and Sales. Mm-hmm. So that fits right into our theme here. So I think that's awesome.
Cool. All I want is to make sure that you come to Surf and Sales one of these days. It's in November. So shameless plug. I'm not above it. So, you should definitely come. I think you'd love it anyway.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about sales. That's what today is all about. And, your journey started in retail and led you to where you are today. I mean, you're definitely sales consultant extraordinaire. What are the key milestones from your career and how has that shaped your approach to sales?
I would tell you that my biggest milestones are the moments I actually got let go, when I got fired. Not when I left. Like, many times where I left on my own, and even the retail story, right? Like, I was all cocky. I was in college. I thought, I'd worked for Gap in high school. I was like, this is what I wanted to do because I wanted to wear jeans and T-shirts out of college. I went and got a job my last semester at college, and I was like, I'm a shoo-in to get management. And I didn't do anything. I sold, but I didn't go learn the things they wanted me to learn, and they'd let me go. And it was like the first, it was the first time that ever happened. So that was heart-wrenching. I'm 22 or 23. And of course I think my life is over and my career is over. But I learned them. I was like, okay, this is what it means to do the work. Right. That was one of those first things about learning how to do the work and then translating that into my next job, which was an inside sales role, and what it meant to really I would, you had an 8-hour day, but I worked 9.5 hours because I just wanted to grind, right? I was young and single and, had the time to do that. So, so that was one example. I've had other examples where, before I became a consultant, I was hugged out the door in that regards because they were about to get acquired by Intel. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the case. And I was really bummed because I really wanted to be there, but I had to step back and learn, what did I miss? And then the other things that have shaped my career are all the times I've interviewed and not gotten the job. right? Before I became a consultant, I was still, which fell in my lap. That was not something I wanted. And I'll shut up in a second because I know I can rant. I was interviewing after that job and I was doing well. Like I was getting to like the fourth or fifth interview, but I couldn't get over the hump. I couldn't get to that last one. And so it's those moments for me that are my biggest learning moments, or at least the most memorable. I certainly learned a lot from my good bosses, right? But if you ask me what are the most memorable ones, and I think that from what I've been told, that resonates with a lot of people. Like, oh yeah, I got to go fix something in myself, right? In most cases, short of someone, and I've never been that person, but short of someone, getting terminated for inappropriate conduct or that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But even then, hopefully that person learns a lesson. So.
Yes, and I think that's true. A lot of the best lessons come from when we don't succeed.
Yeah.
And it's just the learning opportunities. And when that happens, we tend to really think deeply about why. And when we're successful, we just party and have a good time and celebrate.
Yeah.
But
it's like
we can learn in both. A lot of times we don't.
Yeah. When I say what's been the thing you've learned the most, rarely is it someone who says, the first time I learned how to do a budget, right? And,
right.
and run my forecasting for budget purposes. And that's a really big milestone. It just tends to not be the one people remember the most, in my opinion. But maybe I'm just maybe my brain's a little bit more predisposed to the negativity than the positivity, which is, I have a bias and that's okay. I'm a human. So,
yeah. What are some essential components of a successful go-to-market, specifically for SaaS companies? And how can founders effectively, implement those components?
Well, let's define your definition of go-to-market. Are you talking about I'm 6 months into my new company and I'm getting new customers and I'm trying to find product market fit? Are you saying go-to-market of, hey, I've got 50 or 100 customers, now I need to scale?
I think really scale. Both of those are really good, but they're two completely different animals,
right?
That's why in where we are.
Yeah.
So let's talk about scale up. So we've got product market fit and really ready to go out there and blow it up big.
Yeah. So I think the biggest mistake that I see founders make is they think it's going to go faster than it will.
Always.
Right. Always. And it's almost
I still do that. And I know better.
Right. Right. And the challenge becomes, and there's nothing wrong with that concept because that means you're driving to success. The challenge is when you do that and you set unrealistic expectations and goals, and then you fire your head of sales in 16 months because they didn't hit the number. Meanwhile, you're going to go hire a new VP of sales and you're going to make the same mistake, or you're not going to make the same mistake because you're now going to believe that it can't go that fast or that it's going to take longer. So it's kind of like, well, why did you fire the first person in the first place then? Right. So it's kind of the opposite of me getting fired. It's the opposite. It's when you realize it's not going that fast. And what are those adjustments, right? Now, part of this challenge is, I put a lot of accountability and responsibility on the VC because the VC is like, well, maybe you should get a different guy or a different woman, right? Maybe you need to get someone who's scaled it beyond this. And I'm like, really? Because all you're going to do is slow down the process in many cases for the first 60 days. Because that person's got to come in and get acclimated, and then they're going to do something stupid like rip and replace the sales process, because that's what new VPs of sales do. It's like, I assure you, in 90% of the cases, it's not the sales process that was wrong. Right. 10%, that could be it. The problem is nobody was coaching to it. Now, that might be a reason to get rid of the old VP of sales. That's a fair reason. But this whole rip and replace and redo things and blah, 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 blah. Like that's just a VP of sales trying to strut their stuff and use their ego to prove how smart they are. Meanwhile, they're forgetting the fact that they just got the job. It's like, you proved how smart you were. You got the job. Go freaking execute. And in the 10% cases where you do need to rip and replace, that's fair, but it's not always the case. So that's one of the biggest, those are a couple of the biggest mistakes I see as you start to scale. I think the other one that I see is throwing bodies at the problem, right?
Oh yeah.
You don't have a big enough problem, big enough pipeline. That's silly. I think that, it's 2024. So, the whole SDR world is a little bit up in arms about what's going to happen with the AI, and sales reps should be more full cycle, which I agree with. I see people hire a bunch of AEs who suck at prospecting and they can't go prospect. And I see a bunch of people hiring AEs with a list of customers thinking they're actually going to bring them in, and they're not. Right. Those are the things that I see. So you need to adjust for that. And usually I tell people that you should up hire if you're following an SDR model and you've got enough traction that you know that it'll work. I'd hire 3 SDRs and 1 AE if I'm scaling. I need that AE so busy pitching, and rather than hiring 1 SDR and 3 AEs or just 3 AEs.
Right.
That's very expensive. So those are the things I tell people to think about as they start to scale.
So in a model like that, you've got the SDRs that are really bringing the leads into the AE and feeding them. What kind of skill level do you think about for the AE? Is it high level? Is it just a closer? Is it somebody with a real hunter mentality?
It's discovery skills. It's how good are they at doing discovery, right? How good I want, and I say this to AEs. Yeah, like I say this to AEs all the time. Yes, I want to see on your resume that you're a closer and you've hit goals and stuff like that. But you know what I really want to see on a resume? I want to see that your average sales cycle is X, your average deal cycle is this, and here's the number of decision makers you have to navigate in every deal. Right? It's kind of like we talk about ARR, MRR, ACV. You know what we don't talk about? We talk about sales cycle. We don't talk about average number of decision makers per deal.
Right? Yeah, complex selling.
Yeah, but it's not even, and again, I even think calling it complex sales or multi-threaded sales, it's like you're just creating words that make it more challenging. It's like, I don't know anybody who can spend money on anything without checking with somebody. Right? Like it's hilarious to me. Like, I say this all the time too. And again, like if you're at 50 customers or 100 customers and you're trying to scale up and your VP of sales has to come get approval for $15,000 on sales training, that VP of sales should not have a VP title because that's not what they are. That CRO who has to go and ask the CEO or the CFO to approve the money to be spent even after a budget's been approved, they don't deserve a C-level title. And it's the founder and the board who have this massive level of distrust, and they're part of the problem. So anyway, as you can tell, I can rant on all this. I'll shut up now.
I think in those scenarios, a lot of times there isn't a budget to start with. It's
I
still.
Disagree. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, that's a whole other problem. If there's no budget, it's like, well, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, what does that mean? It means that you're a control freak. It means that you're spending time as a CEO or founder managing stupid stuff. Like there's for those who don't know, the infamous story of a former president, Jimmy Carter, was that he got so fed up that he ran the schedule for the tennis court at the White House or wherever it was. And I'm like, that is not what the president of the United States should be doing. Now, I could certainly value that in some cases, that might be a task of like, someone who makes heavy decisions needs a mundane task to stop thinking, right? To create that space to get creative. Sure. But it's like, stop it. Give your team a budget and let them do their job. If you want to fire them because they can't control a budget or run sales and get the revenue, fine. But this micromanaging is ridiculous, right? Like that's just stupid. And the problem is that founders are fearful. They have to report to the board, all that kind of stuff. If you think about big companies who are successful, right? Do you really think a Fortune 500 company, or let's put it this way, if your goal is to exit strategy as an IPO, do you really think companies that have IPOs have the CEO and the CFO approve every freaking purchase?
They better not.
Start acting like what you want to be, not acting like who you are. You are limiting your growth, and that's what slows things down. I once had a conversation with a founder. This is way back. This is 10 years ago. We were going to HubSpot, and it was this was back when like the coolest tool was you could tell when someone could open the email, right? And HubSpot was like $15 or $10 a user a month. And I had to have a meeting with my founder and my new COO on why that was worth our time. Like to explain, well, it helps salespeople to know because then they know they could pick up the phone and call them right then because you've got their attention and we're top of mind. And so I had to have a 30-minute meeting for 3 people I think we had 3 salespeople over a $40 a month decision.
Wow.
Like, seriously. Like that's ridiculous. So.
Yeah. So how do you think sales has changed over the last 4 or 5 years and certainly 10 years?
Yeah. I don't think a ton has changed, right? Like I don't believe that a ton has changed since Mesopotamia in sales. I think we've gotten smarter at it, right? I think we've gotten smarter at understanding our customers, right? And it's because we have data to do that. Where I think we're still lacking is we're still doing too much show and tell, show up and throw up, right? We're still talking at our customers. We're not talking with them, right? And so the conversational skill is getting lost and the humanity is getting lost. That's the part that's missing in my opinion, right? Like, I will gladly sit down and have this exact same conversation with a founder in the exact same tone of voice that I'm using with you to make them realize, like stop it. Right. And again, I can use this tone because that's who I am. And, as a consultant, people don't pay me to say yes all the time. They pay me to say no. So I think that humanity piece is missing. I think the ability to ask questions is missing. And I think it's because founders and leaders, again, are going back to what we said. They're trying to go fast, but they don't understand that going slow is going fast, right? Fast is fast. Going steady is faster, right?
Not starting and stopping in the process.
Yeah. And we saw humanity come back in 2020. We saw it in a huge way with COVID and people slowing down and recognizing lives. And again, this always goes in cycles. Well, it's 2024. Now we're back to massive growth. And it's because 2023 sucked. And I think people are, again, it's May of 2024. I think people are finally realizing that, 2024 is going to turn into 2023. Like we walked into 2024 with all this optimism and hopium. And I did too, right? My business went down in 23 and I'm still seeing the same problem. People still aren't hitting goals because the goals are out of whack. People are still afraid to make decisions because they're hoarding their cash, right?
Yep.
And I get that. I get it. Like as a founder, I get it. Like you got to have cash to grow, but like I can assure you, having that $1 million sitting in the bank and not spending anything on, for what I do, go to market strategy, go to market messaging or sales training isn't going to make your revenue go up. It's not.
Right.
Right. And I get the idea too that like, okay, I'm a founder. I have this many employees. I want to make sure they have jobs and take care of their families. I get it. It's just, you're going to have to make tough decisions. What's changed in sales in the last so many years is that founders are still are afraid to make tough decisions, right? And they're too easy to blame everybody else than look at, well, how did you get here in the first place? You hired the VP of sales. You've never hired a VP of sales. You're a tech founder. Then you're going to blame the VP of sales for not hitting goals because you keep pivoting the product.
Happens a lot.
That's all the time. So to all the founders that are listening, sorry, not sorry. So.
I think sales is one of the most difficult hires to make. And whether that's a rep, whether that is a VP, what are things that we can do? And sales is my background, and I still think it's hard. Right. And I think it's infinitely more difficult when it's a technical founder. What is it that they can do to help make sure they find the right people and get the right people in the right seats? Specifically around building a sales team and transitioning from founder-led to really building up that sales team to scale.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that founders have to do is they have to realize, particularly depending on how much founder-led sales is going on, right? So again, if we talk about the company where it's 50 or 100 customers, that's a very different place. You've probably already started to go down this sales path, right?
Yep.
If you're talking about the founder who's hiring their first or second VP of sales, what I think needs to matter is, do they understand how to tell their story as a use case, as a case study? Can they present themselves as a case study, right? Here's my average sales cycle. Here's my deal size. Here's how many people I've gotten promoted underneath me as a sales leader. Okay. That's a big indication. Well, how many people have you gotten promoted underneath you? None. Okay. Well, what do you think that is? Is it, and it could be that head of sales was at a small company and there was no path. I get it. But if they have worked at bigger companies and they haven't gotten people promoted underneath them, that's an indication to their leadership style, right? And so that's a use case scenario, right? You can ask use case scenarios around, again, as much as I hate the phrase multi-threading and complex sales. Well, explain to me how you did it. And more importantly, explain to me how you taught your team how to do these things.
Oh, that's good.
Right? That's the question you need to be asking is, how did you teach these teams to be successful? Not did you hit the number, right? That's because that's what a true sales leader is going to do. And again, that could be different than the transitioning from founder-led sales where you hire your first director of sales and that director of sales is going to be a salesperson for 3 to 6 months while they start to hire, right?
Right.
You're going to ask use case questions, case study questions about their experience in that regards, right? How many sales teams have you started from scratch? That kind of stuff. The last thing I would suggest too is, you have a decision to make between the people when you hire. Do I want someone who can do or has done? Right? I can't tell you how many people I've seen leave big companies and go to startups, and they're terrible at building a team because they haven't done it in so long.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with coming from a Salesforce or an Oracle or Zoom or whatever. But if you're going to go to a startup, even with 50 customers, and you haven't actually built the process, you were just a cog in the wheel, stop hiring the pedigree. Right? I'd rather hire the young gun who's got a chip on their shoulder, who's going to prove to me that they can get this stuff done, not someone who's going to sit behind a spreadsheet, so to speak. So finding that balance between those things and this, how did you lead your team to be successful? Somewhere in there is the balance, what I think founders need to be looking for, and at least asking those kinds of questions so you can make a better assessment of the different candidates you do have, right? Like right now it's a buyer's market, right? Founders can find anybody they want, and they can probably find some decent ones. That's a big piece of it.
Yeah. And when we think about selling, a lot of times you hear about the buyer's journey. And when we talked last, you were talking about it's not really the buyer's journey, it's the buyer's experience. Contrast those for me. And what are the implications for sales strategy?
Yeah. So, and I'll do my second shameless plug of the day, which is, The Seller's Journey, which is my book on Amazon. But I have this belief that there's no such thing as a buyer's journey. There's only a seller's journey. There's a buyer's experience. A buyer does not talk to a salesperson unless they've had some experience that indicates they want to have more knowledge, right? If it's an inbound lead, there's an experience that's going on around why they want to talk to you. On an outbound cold call, cold email, there's an experience that makes them want to have this conversation. And from that moment forward, it's all about the seller's journey. So if I've had, let's just talk about inbound. If I've had an experience and I'm starting to look at something, right? I'm looking at a new tool for the sales stack or sales training. Something's instigating that. And maybe they go do a Google search. Well, that's the beginner of the seller's journey. And it's an indication of the buyer's experience. Why are they going to click on your ad or your SEO link? Because your SEO link is giving them a better experience, not a better journey, right? And then once they start talking to salespeople, it's about, people. I believe that people will do business with you not just because of what you do, but how you do business. How do you conduct yourselves, right? And how do you make sure you stay on top of things? How do you do active listening and prove to them that you do active listening? How do you ask questions that make the prospect or customer go, gosh, I never thought about it that way. That's a really good question. When I get that answer from someone, when I ask a question, that's when I know they're having a great experience.
That's gold. And just making them think differently. It's not the same thing that everybody else is doing. It's just there's a shift there. And I think that opens up opportunity. Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish, Big Pond, building a world-class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership insights guaranteed to transform your business and operate world-class. Small Fish, Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step-by-step frameworks and time-tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Get your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. Plus, remember, every book sale supports charity. So dive in and let's make a difference together.
Yep, that's what I've sort of modeled everything on and been my experience. And I haven't run a scientific test to prove it, but if there's any founders who are scientists and like to data geek on stuff, I'm happy to chat with you. So.
So as we're doing that, what plays are missing in our playbook? So what are the things that we think are true that maybe aren't, and the things that are just not in there that should be?
Yeah, I think there are very tactical plays missing in the playbook. Reps not knowing how to run respect contracts at the beginning of the call. Reps not knowing how to say, look, if it's not a good fit, tell me. And if I discover I can't help you, not only will I tell you, I'll tell you who you should talk to. I can't tell you how many people I refer to competitors because they ask me for something I don't do. Like, oh, Richard, we need to teach our team how to do PowerPoint training, like how to deliver a PowerPoint. I'm like, well, I can go create something. I can do it. I know how to do mine. I can do it, but that's not my skill set. There are people who do that. Yeah. So I'd much rather put good karma in the world and say that and give someone that experience, right? Like people are like, wow, okay, you'll do that. Okay, cool. Well, that's a different experience, right? So that's one of the plays. I think there's a play around how to write strong accountability emails to put accountability back on the prospect. I think there are plays that on discovery, people are not driving to economic impact. I think the ROI question's a joke. And I tell people, every person who asks me for ROI, I'm like, really? When was the last time you asked a salesperson for ROI and you believed them?
Right. But they still ask. But nobody believes it.
Yeah, because they're stupid. And I'll say it to every CFO from now to the Fortune 1 company, because it's not about what the ROI is, because it's something in the future. You can't predict that. Heck, the weatherman's not even right all the time, right? Yeah. But what is right is what's the economic impact? Why are we even talking? What is the impact that this is having on your business? And because of that impact, how is that preventing your business from growing? And what's the economic impact on that lack of growth? And if you're a founder, that economic impact means it's harder to go get the next round of funding. Well, what round of funding do you need? Oh, $3 million, $10 million. Great. Well, you got a $10 million problem. You don't have some ROI calculation. So it's about the play is not teaching reps how to get to economic impact. And then the last one that's really specific, and then I'll shut up, is we're not taught how to, in the bigger deals, in the bigger companies, we're not taught how to deliver pricing in a lot of ways, even with small companies, but we're definitely not taught how to negotiate with procurement. Nobody
happens a lot.
That. Yeah. Nobody teaches that. In fact, as far as I know, I might be the only person who teaches it. I'm sure I'm not, but it's one of the topics I bring up, and people are like, yes, we need that. So teaching them how to have a conversation in a way that's not combative. Here's the most important thing people should know about procurement. Most procurement people, if you're allowed to talk to them, actually want to talk to sales a whole lot sooner than they do. There's nobody in procurement who wants to work between Christmas and New Year's any more than you do. The challenge is that our internal champion, our person, is afraid to ask procurement, and they're afraid to get their boss to ask for procurement because they think we're trying to rush the deal when in fact, no, we're trying to help you hit the deadline you created, which is your deadline. So I think that's a challenge. So there's a couple more I could roll off, but those are the tactics that aren't being taught that need to be taught.
Those are big.
Yeah. And of course, shameless plug. Yes, they're in my book. Please go get it. If you don't like my book, I'll send you your money back. Like literally send me your Venmo. The first sentence in my book is my email address and says, if you hate this book, I'll send you your money back. I don't care. Like if it's that bad, then I'll give you your money back. So
That's good. I think a lot of salespeople push off procurement. And so it's not only internally, they don't want to bring them in too early, but salespeople, they don't want to get pushed off to procurement. But I think that makes a lot of sense that they want to be involved in the process.
Why do you think salespeople don't want to get pushed off to procurement? What's your opinion on that?
I think it's where deals go to die. It's not the decision maker. But I think that's wrong thinking because they're the ones that write the check. So, I mean, they may not be the decision maker, but they hold the purse strings. Yeah, so you have to get them involved. You have to get them.
Yeah. Here's one more tactic. There is no decision maker. Stop asking for decision makers. There are committees, right? There's the vendor trial committee. Then there's the vendor selection committee. Then there's the legal committee. Then there's the IT security committee. Then there's the purchasing committee. There are committees. What you need to figure out are the skeptics, right? It's like turning around and saying at the end of every first conversation, I'm like, hey, look, I know you're going to take this back to your team and get their opinion on this. Just out of curiosity, who's the most skeptical person on the team and what are they often skeptical about in these situations?
I love that.
Because who gives a shit who the decision maker is? Decision maker's not going to make a decision until they get through all the skeptics anyway. So that's what you need to do. And every one of those committees has at least one skeptic. So you've always got to sort of position it that way.
I think one of the most interesting things about asking that is when you ask, that person isn't there. And so they're kind of projecting, but what they're going to give you is what their real objections are, but they're able to push that off like it's somebody else that's going to have those, but it's really them.
Yeah. And I think, and by the way, I've done what I'm about to say. Like, I think we were all taught, and I did it, and I probably taught it too, of like, hey, I know so-and-so's not here. What do you think they would say? Right. And that's not a bad question. That's a great question. However, that's less direct. And I think you get more fluff of an answer because that person, the person you're talking to doesn't want to give it away yet. They're afraid. However, when I say, who's the skeptic? Because I know that's who you've got to go talk to convince if you want to move forward. Now, all of a sudden, I've repositioned this that I'm on your side, potential champion.
Right. We're together.
And it's like, again, how you wordsmith it and say it is different than Richard, but that word skeptic is super critical. And at some point in that conversation, they'll it's this person and that. And it's like, okay, well, what information can I give you now to take to them so you don't become a ping pong ball? Because you know as well as I do, you're going to go talk to the committee and they're going to ask you 4 questions that we didn't discuss. So what do we think those are? Right. And all of a sudden that person's like, I don't want to be a ping pong ball either. So they finally realize that you're not there to circumvent them or go around them, that you're there to support them because we understand that internal champion we're talking to, in a lot of cases, can make or break their career or their job, right? If the decision is made and it doesn't go well, it's a big deal. So that's why I sort of like going down the skeptic route. I
like that. Well, a lot of times I think the the people we're selling to, they don't buy software every day. It's just,
Yeah.
this is something that is new. They do it every once in a while. They don't necessarily know how to do it. They don't want to be taken advantage of. They don't,
They don't know how to buy in general.
Right. How do we teach them how to buy? And how do we guide them through the process?
Well, I think that's a great question. I really like this. And I'm going to give you my opinion. I want to hear yours. This goes back to asking the questions that help us determine and help them say it out loud what the economic impact is. If they tell me that they can't go raise their next round of funding, that's a whole lot more interesting and emotional for them than if I say, well, gosh, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to raise your next round of funding, are you? Now, all of a sudden, I'm accusing them of making a bad decision.
Right.
But if I ask them questions and they tell me that's their pain, that's the big piece. So that helps them become better buyers, right? And to a certain extent, we are shepherds, right? Like there's this false belief system that, well, the buyer has more information these days. They're more educated than we are. And I'm like, well, hold on. First of all, they're not. Because at this point, we can find all the information we can about Richard Harris if you've got the right tools, right? If you're a salesperson. In addition to that, nobody's sending them to professional buyers training, right? Whereas a salesperson has gone through some level of sales training, right? So how are they smarter than us? Right, sometimes, right? But even then, if you've never been through sales training and you're a successful rep, because they do exist, you figured some stuff out. You're still a smarter salesperson than they are a buyer.
Without a doubt.
Right? So, and it flips too. It's like, when was the last time we became experts on buying a car? Right? Does anybody know what you go into the car dealership and they pull out write down the sheet of paper and they write down the 4 grids. And there's not one person I know who's bought a car that understands what that 4 grid thing means. And it's like, well, why haven't you researched that? They do that. Why don't you understand what they do? So nobody knows how to buy as much as, anything. So do you experience that? Like, what do you see in the world? Like, are you seeing that the buyers are not as educated as they like to think they are?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a distrust of salespeople, and that's one of the reasons that they want to do a lot of research first instead of just go ask the question. They want to dig through and try and come. They don't even know what to ask sometimes, and so they don't want to feel dumb. And so I think that's something that we can help them with. Of here's what people normally ask, or here's what the process looks like. And just make them feel really good about the process. Making a decision is scary. And, choosing new software, implementation, things go sideways and it really could be their job. So they want to have that comfort level of that you've done this before and that you are guiding them.
Which goes back to what we were saying earlier. There's no buyer's journey. There's only a buyer's experience through the journey that we create with sales and marketing. Like, that's what I'm talking about, is that it's the experience. And you're right. Look, I talk to VPs of sales all the time and CROs. This is what I do. Like, I sell sales training and founders. And even that VP of sales doesn't like to talk to a salesperson because they know what's about to happen. Like, I'm like, and it's crazy. Like, it's just interesting. Anyway, so I'll shut up there. So what's
they
the next
don't
agenda?
like to do that, but it's they want to create a scenario where their prospects do want to engage them, right? But then they have that resistance themselves. Yes. So how do they balance that?
So this is not my quote. I can't remember who told it to me, but I don't want to take full credit for something, which is salespeople are supposed to be the biggest instigators of change, right? Like, that's what we do. Who are the hardest people to change their own habits and behaviors? Salespeople.
Yes.
We are the opposite of what we are taught to do. And again, it goes back to that. The best salespeople are often a little stubborn, highly opinionated, and that doesn't necessarily mean ego-driven. And there is that too, is that we just think we know how to do it, and we're just going to cut to the shortcut way of doing it. And I see this all the time, and again, I'm lucky in the sense of what I do and how I do it and the people I talk to. And I've had VPs of sales and CROs say, Richard, just get to this point. And I literally can turn to them and go, just out of curiosity, when your customer tells your sales rep to get to this point and you know that's the wrong thing, what do you tell your rep to say? And they're like, they either do two things. They're like, okay, yeah, you're right. Tell me more. Or they'll be like, yeah, but this is different. No, I get it. And I'm like, no, it's not. And maybe we should pause, because if you think you know what you're doing, why are you even talking to me? Like, I call them out on this stuff. And again, I work for myself. I can get away with a lot of things that people who are listening to can't get away with because they work for a company, or you're a founder, or you don't want to upset someone. That doesn't mean you couldn't wordsmith what I said. Doesn't mean you couldn't figure out a way to go, gosh, I'm a little confused. Like, I understand you want to go fast and make a decision. What happens if you make the wrong decision? Because that's kind of what I want to make sure. Look, if I can't help you make a good decision and you choose someone else, so be it. But you'll at least walk away knowing that I'm not here to try and jerk your chain or jerk you around or whatever. That might be a softer way to say what I'm saying.
Which makes a lot of sense. It is just it's having the soft skills, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's crucial, not only in management and leadership, but in the sales process. Why do you think that the soft skills? What are they, and how do we develop those?
So, part of it is a mental game, right? And that mental game is, first of all, we need to be proud that we're in sales. Like, you can go to a cocktail party and, you see, oh, you're a doctor. Oh, you're a lawyer. What do you do? We're like, oh, I'm in sales. And we sort of lower our voice, and we kind of lower our head, or we roll our eyes. And it's like, oh, what do you do? I help more people get jobs and increase their performance and get promoted than you ever will, Mr. or Mrs. Surgeon, a lawyer. So first thing is play the mindset game, trick yourself a little bit. The second is you have to be more of a student, and you have to have, going back to this, like, I'm the least likely to change because I'm a salesperson. You got to start to study your craft, right? What do doctors and lawyers do really well? They study their craft. They do it really well, right? Salespeople are the newest generation of salespeople are way more open to education, right? Mm-hmm. There's always Grumpy Gus who's been doing it this way for 20 years and they're not going to change, kind of thing. So, so I think that's a big piece in those regards. So, but rephrase that question a little bit, or not rephrase it. Go back to the original question, because I think I kind of got myself off track. Yeah.
It was just about soft skills and developing those as leaders and founders, as well as in the sales process.
So part of it is scripting, right? I'm a big believer in scripts, right? And for example, that ROI, economic impact conversation that I have with CFOs and CROs, guess what? That's a script. I say it 90% of the exact same way every single time, right? And there's a difference. I want people to listen to this part. Like, if you walk away with nothing else from today, there's a difference between having and following a script and sounding scripted. I don't want you to sound scripted. Well, how are you going to not sound scripted? You're going to practice. And here's this is the part that I find so humorous. The beautiful thing about AI right now is that we'll let it write our emails for us, right? And we'll say that's better than what we can write, because that's a script. However, if we asked AI to write a script on how to talk to procurement, no, that's not the right way to do it. It's like, get the fuck out of here. So,
well, sales is definitely evolving toward more consolidated tech stack. There's more tech involved in selling probably than ever before. How should sales teams be thinking about using technology, and then how can they use AI to enhance skills without being scripted?
Yeah. So first of all, you got to practice, right? You got to have a script or say what you're going to say and practice it. And by the way, for those who say I hate scripts or I never use scripts, it's like, really? When you get to the demo, do you say the exact same thing 90% of the exact same way every single time? Because that's a script. You're just comfortable with it. So back to the technology. So there are task-oriented technologies, right, that can do things for you, emails and all those pieces. There are training and coaching AI technologies that exist. There's a technology. Am I allowed to mention a company, or what's the?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's this cool company. I'm not an advisor. I got nothing to do with them as much as I would like to be. I've worked with them, called Hyperbound, and literally you can load up your buyer persona, and your rep can have a cold call with them, and you can set that persona to, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10's a jerk. You can set that scale so the rep can practice out loud hearing that person. And that to me is, how do you develop the soft skills? Through practice.
Yeah, it's the only way.
There's no, yeah. It's kind of like, believe me, Venus Williams, the soft skills for Venus, it's one thing to know you're going to do a forehand. The soft skill is, how much of a quarter of an inch do I rotate the racket in this situation? How do I hold the racket on an overhead smash versus a backhand at the net, right? And I've got to rotate that racket by a very small degree just to make sure I get that shot accurate. Those are the soft skills we're talking about. What's that level of rotation? That's what soft skills are. And how did Venus and Serena get really good at it? Practice. There's no other way. And, this is that part where, again, so how do I go slow and steady to go faster? That, we're talking about at the beginning of the conversation. That's a place. I don't know if you ever did. I've worked at places where it's like, 2 days of product training. Here's the big book of objections. Go sit next to Sarah or Mark and listen to what Mark does. Meanwhile, nobody picks up the phone, and then Mark tells me all the things I'm not supposed to do anyway. Yeah. I've worked in that world. I've trained in that world. I bought into that world. I look, everything I'm saying to stop doing is stuff I've probably done. So, again, I've learned from my mistakes.
Oh, that's good. What about AI in sales? How can sales reps use AI to enhance what they're doing, their conversational skills and personalized communication?
So, Hyperbound is one of those that does that. There's another one. This one I am an advisor, so take it with a grain of salt. But there's a company called Wonderway Coach, where you can actually upload your call recording, and based on whether you use Medic or Neat Selling or Gap Selling or whatever, it can offer suggestions on where you could have gone deeper or everything. So imagine you have a sales coach on every single call you make, right? As opposed to waiting for the manager to come and listen to a call, or waiting for a manager to listen to your call from 3 days ago that you might not remember at this point, which I think is good. Like, that stuff is still good, and you shouldn't turn that away. Like, I'm not like that. Human to human interaction is absolutely critical, required, and important. You cannot do this all through machine. That being said, if I get off a call with you and in 30 seconds, I've got a summary of my call with suggestions. Wow. So that one's called Wonderway Coach, that I really, really like.
Nice.
And so I think we're getting to that stage. I think the next step in the evolution is going to be, and this is something I'm actually building, is the ability for someone to go through training, and then every rep can talk to the bot. So, for example, if I'm training 15 or 20 people, and I got some people who've been doing sales for 10 or 15 years, they may or may not use the bot to go ask a question of like, hey, Richard, remind me how you said to do this, right? Or, hey, Richard, I said it this way. What could I have done better? Whereas opposed to that brand new AE who's never been in sales or had sales training, right? They can go and do that. They can go ask a different question. So what's going to change is the ability to coach the reps more one-on-one based on where they are in their skill set, not just here's the static linear learning approach, right? Like where you had 30 students in math class and some make A's and some make C's. And the people who make C's, by the time they go to 10th grade, they're still making C's. And by the time they go to 11th grade, they're still making C's. And by the time they go to college, they got to go all the way back to remedial math. They can't even do algebra 1 yet because they keep getting left behind. And so the AI technology is now going to be able to help that student in that space for what they need versus what the other person needs. And I think the same thing's going to happen in Lots of it, lots of areas. But anything that's education, that's going to happen, right?
Like that. What's your take on the enablement solutions? How have you seen those implemented well, and then using sales
Well,
enablement, sales training for that alignment between sales, marketing, customer success?
I think there'll be a great advancement there, kind of what I was talking about. Like
Yeah,
it depends on your definition of enablement, right? Um, and believe me, I love LMS systems, right? I think they're great. I think they're excellent for what they were meant to do. We all know that the challenge with any learning tool is how many reps are going to use it. And I think the most important thing is, you know, understanding what the reality is of what level of expectation you can get out of it. And I think AI is going to grow very quickly. I have not looked at a lot of enablement tools in the AI space yet, like to be truthfully. So, I'm not a bullshit artist, so I won't lie. I think there's tremendous opportunity there. The challenge that you always have around enablement, sadly, is that it's one of the first thing in the sales team to get cut, which is very counterintuitive. It's like, wait a minute, you're
yeah, we don't
behind
have enough
on
revenue.
revenue.
Let's
We're
hobble the
behind
sales
on
team.
revenue, so let's cut the enablement person as opposed to our 25 salespeople. Let's cut the bottom 4 or 5 or 6. And I say that cautiously because I'm a human. I don't want someone to make a spreadsheet decision like there are 25 or
Right.
26. Those 5 or 6 people still have lives and families and those things.
Yeah.
At some point as a founder, you have to make tough decisions, right? And you can hug them out the door. Like you can give them 3 months severance and 3 months of insurance, so they have a little bit of runway, right? Those kind of things. So,
Sure.
so if you treat them in a humane way, it's important. So I find that piece interesting, and I do talk to a lot of enablement people. They often come to me looking for jobs, or looking for people I know who are hiring in enablement. And it's hilarious to me that they're one of the first things to get cut. And I mean hilarious by hilariously sad, not hilarious funny.
Well, where can people learn more about you online?
Richard Harris on LinkedIn. I'm the Richard Harris with the TM emoji by my name. No, you cannot trademark your name. It's just, my way to be creative. I'm also really crazy. +1 415 596 9149 596 9149. My legit cell phone number. I know that's the legit because it's the one my kids ignore when I text and call them. And if you do want to talk to me, text me first. Just let me know you heard us here on SaaS Fuel, so I will answer the call. But very few people ever call me. Like it's pretty rare. It's interesting. So LinkedIn or my cell phones, or you can also find me at harrisconsultinggroup.com and thesellersjourney.co.
We'll make sure to link those in the show notes.
Yeah. So
and that is the book, The Seller's Journey.
Yeah, which goes down this premise and has all these tactics in it and talks about this mindset piece and it's the only sales book I know that gives you a money back guarantee. So
awesome. Richard, thanks for being on SaaS Fuel. It was a great conversation.
It's always fun to talk to you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Sorry to everybody if I ranted or if I hurt your feelings. Sorry, not sorry. So
it's all part of the buyer's experience.
Exactly. There you go. Well played.
Thanks again, Richard, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. And you have to love anybody who puts surf and sales together, right? Well, you can learn more about Richard and surf and sales at theharrisconsultinggroup.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Our channel is at Champion Leadership. We've got full episodes, video shorts, training, outtakes, lots more on there. And thought leaders share. You going to be one today? I bet you are. Share this episode with someone who could use a sales boost in their business. And who couldn't, right? Everyone who shares this week gets a Sales Surge Super Soaker. It's a water gun filled with instant sales boosting juice. Spray it around the office and watch your deal flow and MRR shoot up faster than a geyser. Join us next Tuesday, where our founder is Dr. Paul Ashley, online safety and privacy CTO of Anonymity Labs, who brings over 30 years of expertise in software development and security to empower users with control over their own digital interactions. Very cool stuff. And next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have Greg Brooks, a partner at Search Tides, which is a hub for all things search, SEO, and the AI era of searching online. If you want insights about the future of being found online, you won't want to miss this one. I will see you next time, and as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.